listening to the Sass Says podcast. I'm your host, Christy Rocha, also known as Sass. I identify as a woman, a wife, and a mother. That should tell you a lot already. And over the last few years, I've learned the value of talk therapy. I have seen how my inner work not only enhances my own well-being, but also my marriage, my parenting, my relationships. And in fact, you wouldn't be hearing this right now if it weren't for the work I've done. My mission is to debunk the misconceptions and stigmas around what therapy is and who it's for. Let's normalize working on our mental health and seeking help when needed. We've all heard of self-care, self-help, and self-love, but do you often wonder how to actually make it all happen? I do. You'll hear strategy-based conversations with professionals, as well as inspiring and validating stories from women who are just like you and me. Think of this podcast as the weekly therapy sessions you didn't know you needed, with a dash of sass, a lot of vulnerability, and me, relentlessly asking, but how? Hey, welcome to the Sass Says podcast. Today I'm joined by Alexandra Bouffard, owner of Madison Gray Media, TikTok superstar, and co-host of the Give It To Me Straight podcast with her husband, John. Alex and I talk about what it's like to go viral and her process for creating content on TikTok. We talk about the challenges of working side by side with her husband, balancing work and home life, and the importance of communication in her marriage and in business. Alex is a straight shooter, downright hilarious, and a driven entrepreneur at heart. I'm so excited for you to hear our conversation. Make sure to stay tuned after the show for my final thoughts. Hey, Alex. Thank you so much for joining me.
Hi, Christy. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh my goodness, Alex, you are my first recording ever.
Wow, it's such an honor. I feel like it like takes a lot to get a guest on. Like John and I, when we had our podcast, we were like, who do we have on? How do we even do it? So like the fact that like you already like know how to do this, good for you.
Thank you so much. That was literally took the words out of my mouth. It is nerve-wracking. I'm adrenaline right now through the roof. So thank you.
I'm so excited.
Thank you. All right. So I want to get started right away. TikTok. Tell me about how that all came to be.
Yeah. So it's crazy to look back at like a year, because I'm all into like statistics and numbers. So like even in our business, my husband and I own a business together. I keep track of everything and like our growth and statistics every month. And so like when I look back at our numbers from a year ago, I just like can't believe how quickly we've grown. But I think that's just the world of TikTok. You kind of just, it's this space where you have such an ability to grow at such a rapid rate. So we are wedding videographers, and during the pandemic, like many people, our jobs were affected. Mm-hmm. So we, a lot of our weddings were postponed. So I had contracts that I was redoing and just like I was focusing more on like the back end stuff of the business without actually going to the weddings because everyone was moving things around. So I had jumped on TikTok and I was like, wow, this is like really entertaining and funny and hilarious. And I could envision John and I creating some content on there, but wasn't really sure like what space we were going to do it in. So I would come up with some ideas and ask him, and he'd be like, no, this is so dumb. This is for kids. But then slowly he started doing more and more with me. And then it just kind of took off. We had a few viral videos, and I think that was a little bit of motivation for him to keep going, because he liked reading the comments and just seeing like people's reactions from them. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it really just started during quarantine out of boredom and then grew from there.
I love it. I mean, you two, the way your videos are shot is so impressive, but also the acting. I feel like you guys are professionals, the expressions, all of it. It's so good.
Well, he's very animated, but like so am I. But I'm like the little director behind the camera. Like if he's not doing something right, I'm like, nope, we're not posting it. Do it again. You're so mean. I'm like, really? Well, I'm not posting it unless it's perfect. So.
Well, you guys don't give that vibe off at all. It seems like it comes very naturally, very easy.
Yeah, well, that's one thing we said from the beginning was that we wanted to have fun doing it. Like it was in addition to our work, in addition to our lives, like once it became a job, we were like, we don't want it to not be fun. Like we don't want to fight over things. We don't want it to become stressful. So like if there are some days where we're like, we can't get a TikTok out today because we have so much other stuff going on in our lives, we're like, that's fine. The world will go on.
Yeah, so true.
Yeah.
And so you've gone viral, I guess probably a few times now. I know Shay Mitchell has shared your work, the
Yes.
Betches accounts have shared it. I mean, how does that feel?
It it's like it never gets old. It is always a hit of adrenaline. But it's funny because we were actually talking about this the other day, how like when you hit this high in, the social media world, it's such a great feeling, but like then it dies so quickly and you're just striving for the next high, if that kind
Mhm.
of makes sense. And it's just like a constant cycle of like the next thing or like making the next video. I think it's because social media goes so quickly. It's like things aren't looming around for days or weeks or months. It's like, what's the next viral video within the next 24 hours? So as much as like I love it, and I feel like that sounds so selfish, but like I it's a love hate thing because it's fun, but then it's like bad because I'm like we're craving the next one. You know what I mean?
Totally. I
So
I
like we
actually was just having this conversation with my therapist this morning. I was saying to her that I have to watch myself because I'm now craving the high of someone accepting a pitch for my show.
yes. Oh
And
yeah.
it's like it's the same thing. I'm so grateful that someone accepts and they book and I'm on this cloud, but then I have to go downstairs and wipe my kid's butt. And it's like,
Right.
okay, well that was great for 15 minutes. Now
Yeah,
I'm
like
back to
it
reality.
feels so short-lived, and I feel like you need to appreciate those moments a little bit longer than we actually let ourselves.
Yes, I know. I mean, it's hard though because you get that rush and then
Yeah.
it's the extremes of it.
Right. And it's just so fast-paced, but either way, no matter when like we're featured on a channel like that, like I'm just so humbled and I can't believe that like, we get the opportunity to be featured on those things and it's fun. It's just fun.
Yeah. Have you two experienced any negativity on the account or on social anywhere?
We're really lucky. A lot of our followers are so kind and so supportive. And the thing is, too, I don't feel like we post anything controversial. Like, we're very just comedy based,
Right.
real life, understand, like marriage content. But when we do get mean comments, I just try to, like, I always think of this too. Like, I don't know if I would have been able to have the platform that I do have today a few years ago. Like, I'm definitely
Mm.
more mature now and can let those comments roll off of my back. I think
Mhm.
a few years ago, I would have let them get to me and I would like probably respond back and just be mean. And,
Mhm.
it would probably hurt my feelings. But now I know that if someone is commenting something mean to us, like, oh, John, you could do so much better than Alex, she's not attractive, or
Oh
like,
my goodness.
this isn't funny, or just like
Right.
little comments like that,
Right.
I'm like, this person is in a dark place, and i
Mhm.
i try to make it more about them, like, oh well, what's going on in their lives that they feel like they have to comment and troll on someone else's account who they don't know who I am.
Totally. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I commend you for that. It's very easy to say and a little bit more difficult to actually practice.
Yes.
When
Yeah,
those
for sure.
comments come in, it kind of it gets right to your core sometimes.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it though it has to do with maturity or your own confidence. I feel bad for a lot of these kids who are on TikTok who go viral and then they're
Mm,
just eaten alive, and they don't have the confidence or the mindset to really know that it's not about them. Like, it's not, the
right.
mean comments are not directed towards them. It's really just the insecurities of the people who are commenting.
Mhm. No, it's so true. I mean, I have nieces and nephews who are on it and sometimes I do wonder about that, because you can get really sucked into that world.
Absolutely.
That being said, Alex, with these kids, being on TikTok, content creators, is there anything that you wish you had known when you started that you would want them to know?
Um, I just think that, I mean, if I were like talking to my younger self,
Mhm.
I think I cared so much about everything being perfect and saying things the perfect way, or having my hair look perfect, or just, coming across very curated, as
Mhm.
opposed to just showing up and being myself. And I know a lot of the things that we do are skits, but even and so like, I don't want to say like they're made up because like, we rehearse, not that we rehearse them, but like they're pre-made, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
curated type of things. But like they're definitely more geared towards who we are and our personalities. And I've learned that done is better than perfect.
Mm.
So I think that that's one thing that I would have told my past self is to like not care about what you look like, or if the lighting isn't perfect, or if you say something a little bit weird, or if your voice cracks, or
Mm-hmm.
if a certain angle of yourself, because no one actually cares. No one is paying attention to you that much. Like they're there to get the gist of the content and then they're moving on to the next thing.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes people get a little too paralyzed in caring about themselves and then they don't put their content out there. And I think for so long that's what John and I did, or that's at least what I did. I was a watcher, or like I was a consumer without being a producer. Like we were very
Mm.
much behind the scenes in our business. Like we were always the ones behind the cameras, and I would be like, wow, I feel like we could really do this, but I would nitpick things so hard and then, it was a cycle of constantly nitpicking and not actually creating because I was so worried about it being so perfect. So I think, done is better than perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Just get your content out there and really stay true to yourself.
Yeah, well, I feel like you're talking to me right now. So I appreciate
Yeah.
that. I have a board here in my office that says launch fast, adjust later, because
Yeah. Well, you learn as you go.
yes, and I will sit here and I will need to perfect and control every aspect, and it's just not going to work that way. I'll never get it out there if I don't just start. But it's really hard.
Yep.
It's hard to push yourself when you are accustomed to having that control or that perfectionism in you. And especially, I think, when it comes to being a public figure, when you're yourself, you can't be perfect. It's just not,
Hmm.
it's not going to happen.
But I think that's what a lot of people identify with. If you do stumble upon your words, or
Mm-hmm.
you're not completely put together for the day,
Mm-hmm.
or, your nails are chipped, like people identify with that because it's real life,
Yeah.
I even like on Instagram, having such like a pretty feed for so long was so important to me, like trying to line up the photos and making
Yes.
sure that they looked good. And I'm like,
Yes.
does anyone actually care? Does anyone care? Probably not.
Right.
It's like
Right.
really the content that matters.
Well, and
But
the people
I
who know
completely
and
know
like
where you're
you.
coming from, though.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying the people that know and like you and are there for you don't care.
Right, right.
Yeah.
But I know exactly where you're coming from, though, like in regards to the podcast, because John and I were in the same boat a few months ago. I think we re-recorded our first podcast like 7 times because we were like, oh no, it could be better. We could do better. And then we were just like, we just have to put it out there. We just have to release it.
I hear you two bicker in the top part of the show sometimes, and
Yeah.
it'll say like, "You guys don't know this, but this is our 14th time saying welcome to the show."
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Exactly. Or John, he messes up his words so many times, but I'm like, you're the one editing it. I feel like if I was the one editing the show, I would have us go back and re-record things probably 10,000 times. So I think
Yeah.
it's a good thing that he has control of that.
Yeah. So that sounds like that's one of the better parts of working with your spouse is that you have a teammate, you divvy up the responsibilities. What are some of the harder things about working with your spouse?
Well, I thought it would be a little bit more challenging because, you spend too much time with someone and you really do get sick of them, just by like hearing them breathe. But thankfully, we were good from the beginning because we had another videographer friend. They're a
Mm.
husband and wife team. We had a conversation with them before John came on full time, and they kind of mentored us a little bit and gave us some of their tips on what to do and how to navigate being a husband and wife team and working with one another full time. And so they said to really delegate different tasks, who's good at what, and keep those tasks separate,
Mhm.
and then set up time to converse about what's going on in the business. And then once it's a certain time, cut it off. Like we don't need to be chatting business at 7, 8 o'clock at night.
Right.
So we figured out who was good at what. Like I do more of the creative stuff, and John does more of like the admin linear things, which is like a little bit less creative.
Mhm.
but like, he also he's like, I don't have a creative bone. I'm like, well, you edit the podcast. That is creative,
Yeah.
So, but we have different tasks. So we don't really talk through the day. Like we sit next to each other all day long. But we break it up. We go to the gym and
Mhm.
get like, to take a break, but we don't really chat too much, which is, I think, how we're able to successfully work with one another is because we're both doing our own thing.
Yeah. Well, and if you were both these big creatives, you'd probably end up butting heads
Ah,
than
yeah.
working together.
Yeah. And that's what's good. Like we're very opposites in that way. We're similar in like our core values, and we're similar in like our goals, but we're opposites in how we work.
Hmm.
John is very structured. He needs to know like exactly what he's doing. And I'm more just like, I figure it out as I go. Like, again, more of like the creative
Hmm.
style things. But
Well,
yeah, so it works for us.
well, I'm laughing in my head because when I first found your account, watched your videos, of course I related to you as, I'm thinking of the video where John is leaving all the cabinet doors open and the drawers open in the kitchen, Of course I'm relating to that in your shoes, and I find myself relating to your shoes in most of your videos, but listening to your podcast, I am John
Yeah.
in my relationship. I'm
Yep.
John, my husband is you, and I find that so hysterical. And, um, I'm quoting here, John has referred to himself as a moody bee, an anxious person. Are
Mhm.
these sort of, just kind of jokes, or do these truly manifest in a way that as his partner, you feel like you really need to be there and support him?
Yeah, so he's definitely like more emotional than you would think as a guy. Like I definitely, I think, play more of like the male emotions where like I don't really care. I'm go with the flow, where John has to have a plan for everything. So
Yeah.
like, which is tough because I was the one who started the company, and then he came on full time with me. So I knew the ins and outs of everything. And
Mm,
so he, because he's a planner, needs to know everything. But I'm the one who, like,
guilty.
because I do client communications, I'm the one who's like conversing with our clients. And so
Mm,
when he chats and he's like, "What? So what's going on? When are we doing this? What's going? Where are we staying? Where?" Like, see, and you asked me like about these venues in New Jersey, and I'm like, I don't even know. I have to look it up. Like, whereas John, he would know like up until a year out exactly
yeah,
where things are. He has to write them down, and I just like I'll look it up the day before because I'm
right,
just very. I'm fine. Like it's all gonna work out.
right.
But yeah, he's very much like the anxious planner
Hmm.
but it balances us out in that way because I do need a little bit more structure when it comes to stuff like that. But
Hmm.
I balance him out because I'm just like, you got to relax, my love. Like,
Yeah.
it's
Well, I was
all
just
going to
going
be
to
fine.
ask you, do you find that because he's that way, have you altered your style a bit to to meet him in the middle? Like, how does that work?
Yes. Yeah. It was definitely a learning curve in the beginning because, when you're on your own, you have your own styles of doing life,
Hmm.
of planning your days, of planning your weeks. And then when I started dating John, he was like, "No, like this is what I need." And so it was definitely a learning curve, but I did have to work on communicating and how I communicated things with John, and especially when he came into the business, teaching him things and being
Hmm.
slow. I am a terrible teacher. I am like Google it and figure it out yourself, like because
Right,
that's what I did and that's
right.
how I learned. Like I hate asking people for help. Whereas John is like, but if you teach me once or tell me how to do it, I won't have to ask you. But but I just think that everyone should learn how I learn and how I do things, but obviously that's not how life works.
Right.
So yeah, you definitely we definitely had to go through some challenges there, but it ended up working out. But we still will run into some obstacles where he's like, "Hey, I know that like you're getting frustrated because I'm not learning this as quickly as you would." And
Hmm.
he's like, "Because you're so talented and great at everything." And I'm like, "I know." He's like, "But I just need a few minutes. Just like sit with me and walk me through this."
Hmm.
But
So
he's good. But like, it's definitely all about communication.
well, that's not how we say it, though, is it?
Right. Yeah, absolutely not. Right. Never.
Communication.
Right. Oh, you mean yes. Communication. We sing it. We
We
don't
sing
say
it.
it.
Well,
Yeah.
I think it's so great. I mean, like, the podcasts I do enjoy because, you really get a sense for your personalities, but also because you guys are just so, I mean, the show is called Give It To Me Straight. You're just so straightforward, which is so refreshing, I think, in times when people are just all about the highlight reel.
Right.
Where did the idea for the podcast come from? How did you get to this place? Tell us a little bit about this podcast.
Well, so when I met John, I was like, I have never met a male version of myself. Like, again, we're very different in certain elements of life, but like someone who is so outspoken and opinionated, but like in in a in like a funny way. Like I don't say things honestly to someone to hurt their feelings. Like I always add like a hint of comedy to it. If my
Okay.
sister is dating someone I don't like, I'll somehow let her know that in a loving, funny way. It might come back to bite me later, but it's fine. But John, when I met him, I was like, oh my gosh, like he's like me, but times 10. Like he has no filter when it comes to his friends or anything. So what I noticed when John and I were together is a lot of people were asking both of us for advice because we worked
Mm.
very well as a couple just with our communication and how we resolved conflict. And then, if someone asked our opinions on things, John was very unfiltered. He was way more unfiltered than I was.
Mm.
So we had several people coming to us for specifically relationship advice. And I think we've always, especially during quarantine, we were like, let's just do something else creative, like in addition to TikTok. Like we have this platform that is relationship based. What is something that we could do? And we thought we were thinking of a YouTube channel, but because we're already in the video field, I didn't want it to feel like more work
Mm.
because we're
Mhm.
already editing videos all day long for work. I was like, let's do podcasts, and
Mhm.
I love listening to podcasts and just like I love listening to podcasts where I feel like I'm hanging out with friends. So I
Yeah.
kind of wanted to create a space like that for us to give that to some other people.
Mhm.
And because again, John is so opinionated, I was like, let's give advice. And we like tried to figure out the names and we weren't like super sure. And then we landed on Give It To Me Straight
Yeah.
eventually. We like made a list of names. We were like, ooh, this one hits. This is
Yeah.
it.
Well,
So yeah,
it suits you too.
yeah, thank you. So yeah, that's kind of how it started was people were coming to us for advice and then we like wanted to do create a podcast. So
And do you ever feel like, because I'm thinking of, in creating this show, I already, it's not even launched, and I get those pangs of that imposter syndrome, that who even
yeah,
cares what you're going to say, how you're going to say it, is this even worth it?
right. Well, and then but then when I feel like that, I look at the big picture of the world and then I
Mhm.
really come back and I'm like nothing truly matters. So why not just do anything that you want to do? Because if you
Yes.
think about life, like I think about my great aunt and she died at 105.
Wow.
And I was like, wow, she died like a few years ago, but like
Oh, sorry.
105 years ago, like
Right.
she was around people who are no longer around and like not that their legacies don't matter because I'm sure she was around a lot of important people, but like nothing matters. We're
Right.
all going to die.
Right. Yeah.
Very
No,
morbid, but yeah.
you're right. I mean, your outlook on everything. I mean, I'm speaking a little bit more generally because I have listened to your show and I've watched probably every TikTok you've ever posted, but your outlook is very grounded and very realistic. Where does that come from? Is that an influence from growing up, or do you do your own inner work, or where does your just sort of general I don't know, confidence and just general outlook on life, like how did you get to that point?
I would have to say I'm very blessed that I grew up in a family that uh, they were all about like your dreams and like fulfilling your dreams. Like my parents, my whole life have just been like, life is too short. Like truly, whatever you want to do, go for it.
Mm-hmm.
They never held my hand through anything. Like as a kid, I was like, I want to be an actress. I want to be on Broadway. And my mom was like, well, then do it. Like, I'm not gonna bring you to auditions. I'm not gonna, do this for you or do that for you. But if this is something that you want to do, figure it out and do it. So I think that's kind of where the figure it out mentality was instilled in me, was because like no one held my hand through things, but my parents always did instill the life is too short. Who cares what other people think? Everyone's going to have an opinion of you. Who cares? And just do what you want. And it's funny because my siblings and I are so different. And I'm like, we grew up like with the same family and in the same life. Like, how are we so different? But I think ultimately it comes down to like, what are your personal desires and your personal dreams? Like my brother, he's just always wanted a family and to live in a house with his wife in the same city and like have his kids go to a good school. And he works for my dad. My dad has his own company, but like that was his dream. He wanted to have a secure career. And for me, I was like, wow, like I like to live the chaotic life apparently.
Yeah. Moving 10 times in 11 years is not quite stable.
Yes, exactly. It's stressful, but I wouldn't have it any other way. But I really do think it's, the way that I was raised with my parents, and thankfully they always just instilled that from a very young age, was just that like, do whatever you set your heart, whatever your heart wants to do it, work hard. And so that's just what I've always done. Like if there's something that you want to do, figure it out, because no one's going to do it for you. Yeah. And life goes by too quickly.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's all so on point, so valid. I mean, and then as far as John, the relationship, I mean, I know you guys have the song, the communication song, but these are not easy topics that the two of you discuss on air. I mean, you've learned a lot, it seems, in a short time in your marriage and in your relationship. Where does that come from? Is that, again, your parents? Is that prior relationships? I mean, it's hard for people to understand how key that communication is. Or actually, now that I'm saying it out loud, I think it's drilled into our heads that communication is important. But the next step is how to communicate effectively. I think that's the piece that a lot of people miss.
Right. Well, I will say it's still not easy all the time. And again, like as honest as our podcast is, there's still a level of vulnerability that is hidden, or that is behind the scenes, because we are normal. We still do fight. It still is hard for us to communicate when we're heated. Right. And so I think for us, I would say John was the one who made it easier for me to communicate. I am was terrible at first. Like if something was wrong in our relationship, or if we had a fight, I was like leaving, not like leaving our relationship, but I was like, I need a minute. Like I'm going on a walk. I do not want to have a conversation right now. Where John is very much the opposite. He's like, no, we're going to tackle this right now. Get this over with. And I'm like, I need to breathe.
I swear to God, I am John.
Yeah. He like wants to fix things right away.
Oh,
and I'm
yeah.
like, no.
I pushed right through. I'm like, where are you going? Sit down.
Yep, that is John. Yeah. And so, but there is something to say about that, because it's like, why waste time being mad at each other? And then like, sometimes you just give each other a look and you're like, what is this? And we just laugh. And we're like, what were we even fighting about? Like, let's eat dinner. And half the time it's like, all we need to do is just eat because we're just hungry. And then I think it's looking at the grand scheme of things. Like the smaller stressors are probably the things that are getting to you. Like for me, sometimes I'm like, am I on my period? Yeah, that's probably why I'm cranky. Like, did I have a lot of emails to go through, or like, did something go wrong at work? Like all these little things that build up, and you take it out on your partner. And you're really not mad at your partner. You're just mad at the extra, or what word am I looking for? The exterior parts of the world. I don't know what the word I'm looking for is.
Yeah, no, I mean the outside
external
stressors.
Factors.
Yes,
external factors. Yeah. And so I think it definitely took time to become good communicators, but John was the leader in that. I probably, if it weren't for John, I would never talk about anything and just hold all of my feelings inside and explode.
Alex!
I know, I'm terrible. No, I definitely do. But like that was, I think a lot also has to do with like maturity and understanding
Yes.
where your feelings are coming from and your stressors. So, and it just comes from growth and learning. And not that I like read self-help books all the time and that's the answer, but I think by constantly listening to other perspectives as well, listening to podcasts, reading, talking to other people and their relationships and how they handle communicating. But like, I just feel like, why not communicate? Because when you don't, you're just going to become passive aggressive. You're going to hold all these emotions inside and you're just going to waste your time. Like, again, life is short. And if you look at everything like that, like life is too short to let this BS get in the way. It makes it so much easier to just like put that stuff aside, talk about it and get over it.
Yeah. I mean, and no shame in the self-help books, or, I mean, I think that term kind of gets a bad rep, but
right.
It is true. You don't know what you don't know. And you have to be willing to and secure enough in yourself to look in the mirror and go, what role did I play in this argument today?
Yep. Absolutely.
And what can I do to fix it? Or moving forward, how do I change it? Do you have any go-to podcasts or resources that you listen to regularly that might touch on this, or anything that you like listening to?
I listen to a lot of business podcasts, but it's funny because business, you don't realize that like business is relationships. Like good business is good relationships. So a lot of, communication in regards to business is really just building relationships. I keep like saying the same words, but like that's what it is. So it's very similar. Like John and I, our relationship is built on the same sort of concepts as a business.
Yeah. What's that word? Is like transferable skills,
Yeah. Yeah. And then like when I have some people come to me even for business advice, I'm just like, well, who are you as a person? How are you communicating with your clients? Because they are expecting some form of level of communication just as your spouse would or your partner would, or, I just think that there's a lot of elements and that are similar that coincide. And it's really not rocket science. It's just people want honesty.
Honesty. And the other word that's coming to mind for me is respect.
Yes.
When you're 100%. In business, your mentality is usually, I'm going to respect this person. I'm going to act accordingly. And in the relationship with your partner, that should be there too. It should be one of the top things.
Well, one of our mottos, which I feel like a lot of people go by this in business, is to overpromise, underdeliver. And if you underdeliver oh my God, wait,
no,
that's a lie.
I think it's the reverse.
Oh my God. See, I'm like being like John now. I'm messing up my words.
Yeah. I got in your head. I was like, I'm John.
And overdeliver. Yeah, you definitely don't want to underdeliver. So you want to see, I can't even get it right now. Underpromise, overdeliver. Yeah. So if you end up underdelivering in a relationship or in business, like you feel terrible because you don't want that. Like you want to go above and beyond to do the job that you were given, or in a relationship, like you always want to do your best and show up for your partner. And so like when you fall short, you have to own up to it. And it's the same in business. So yeah, I wouldn't say that there's necessarily a podcast that I listen to in regards to like relationships. They're more business, but I think that they coincide pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm certain they make you think. I think anything, human nature is whatever you hear, whatever you're reading is how like you're relating it back to yourself always. So
yeah,
I think it just anything that makes you think. And I don't know. I've been on this little kick recently with reading, and I've always listened to podcasts, but reading books and different things that just, even if on the surface I'm like, I don't know if I buy into this, no matter what, it's making me think about some aspect of my life that might shift my perspective, or just cause me to take a second look at how I relate to whatever it is I'm reading.
What books have you read that like are good for you, or like that you found, I guess, that like make you think a little bit more?
Recently I read a couple of Jen Sincero's books, the You Are a Badass books.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, I like her. I read recently that You Are a Badass at Making Money, and that like sent my world upside down. I've got like money mantras all over
Stop.
my house, and
I need to write that down.
yeah,
You are badass at making money.
yeah, just at the end of it, you're just like, yeah, let's go make some money. Like, I don't know how I'm gonna do it, but I'm gonna manifest the crap out of this money right now.
Yeah, yeah.
You're
Yeah.
like all pumped up. And then I read too this book called When Things Fall Apart, and it's basically about about how you react to tough times, and what your definition of a tough time is.
Right.
It looks at meditation, but not in a very like, here, sit down and be quiet for 5 minutes. It's just a lot of what we're talking about, just taking that second to reflect on yourself and what you've said and what you've done and how you want to contribute to the world on a much larger level, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't know, but I
Love
think
that.
I think too. I think we're about the same age, 30s, early 30s, or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think.
Late 20s. I'm almost in the 30s. I'm 29.
Oh
Getting
my
there.
God, Alex!
John's 34. He's.
Oh, thank God. That's okay. My husband's 44, so we're good. But I just think as you just get older, and we're not even old. I'm gonna say we because we're close enough, but.
Yeah.
You just start to realize that at least for me, I have to stop accepting things as they are and actually taking responsibility for my life and what I'm bringing to the table, how I'm contributing to the world. I don't know, maybe it's a having kids thing too that really makes me push that envelope. But I'm sure even being in the public space, I'm sure you get comments or feedback from people, even the questions that people write into your show. I mean, I sometimes hear them and go, wow, someone's asking that question, that means they're in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
And having that perspective on, I don't even know what I'm talking about anymore.
Well, I mean, like some of the questions that we get, I preface everything with like, we are not experts. Like we are giving you our just like unfiltered, like one-sided, because we're only hearing one side of the story, obviously, when like people write in.
True.
But it is hard, and that's why I just always preface everything with just like, do what you want though, live your truth, because you don't have to listen. And like that's one thing too, like you can be, I don't want to get violent here. I'm like, you could beat someone until they're dead in the face, but you can like beat someone with this knowledge. And same thing with like starting a business. You should do this. You should do that. If someone does not want to do something, they're not going to do it.
Totally.
And that's too, you were talking about like some of these books that you read, even like manifesting money or just like business relationships, whatever. Sometimes you could read words on a page 8,000 times from 8 different authors in 8 different ways, but like it's not until the 9th time that it sinks in and you're like, wait a minute, I've heard this before. And then you implement it. And so that's why I like listening to several different podcasts or reading different books, because even though they're all essentially saying the same thing, sometimes it just like it needs to be said a certain type of way for it to really stick and for it to make sense.
It needs to not only be said, first of all, I couldn't agree more, and it needs to be said sometimes in a different way, but I'm also finding now that it also has a huge difference to me depending on the space I'm at and if I'm ready to receive the words.
Yes. So true. That is so true.
You have to be willing and open and ready. I think ready is the biggest thing, because even on your show, you hear about, people, should I stay with this guy or not? He's this or that. It's like, if you're asking, you probably know the answer. You're just not ready to make the decision.
Right. Like you're going to constantly then make excuses as to why you're going to stay. And I'm sure your friends are telling you why you shouldn't, but like until you are fully ready and confident in yourself to walk away from the relationship, like you're going to keep reaching out and trying to find these little nuggets of, wait, but why should I leave? And like adding them up. But like until you get there and hit your breaking point, like you're not going to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Everyone has to learn on their own time. And
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've honestly stopped giving a lot of advice. I don't know what I'm doing on a
You like are
podcast.
talking to a wall.
Yeah, but it's like, it's just, you know what? I got my own manifesting to do. I've got my own inner processing to do, and it gets to be a lot. And when you start to feel like, I think when you realize truly for yourself that there's almost nothing a friend or a family member can say that's going to change my mind about something, I have that perspective shift on, that person's in that place right now. No matter what I say, that's where they want to be, and that's probably where they're going to stay.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And then it's like exhausting if they keep coming to you for advice, or even on the flip side, if you keep asking for advice for something and like you're not really ready to receive it, it just becomes a waste of time, and it's just soul sucking.
Yeah. But to our first point, which I think is the better, more impactful point, is when that person is ready for whatever it is, whether it be a relationship or mental health or, work, starting a business, these types of conversations need to be out there so that when they're ready to hear it, it's there.
Mm-hmm. Right. And that's what I mean. Sometimes you have to hear it, and then the 10th time, the 9th time, that's when it hits.
Yeah.
That's when you hear it.
Yeah. No, it's so true. I mean, I feel like I spent a lot of last summer listening to a lot of shows, and that's a lot of what inspired me to do this, is that I listened to so many women talk about their experience postpartum that it's ultimately, I mean, I'm telling you, I probably listened to 20 different shows, and it wasn't until the 20th one that I was like, yeah, all right, I think I might have postpartum depression, it just, and so I'm so grateful for the people that do put their story out there. People like you and John, who are just willing to put your relationship out there, put your struggles out there, put your wins and your highs and your lows out there, because when someone's ready, they need to know that there are people they can turn to, that there are conversations out there that can make them feel less alone and make them feel ready to talk about their own experience.
Well, and I think a lot of times too, it's so easy to look at a space, especially like the podcast space or any like creative space, and think like, there's no room for me. There's already people doing this or people talking about this. Like the fact that you said that you've listened to 20 shows of people talking about postpartum depression, and like, that's not something that I've experienced, but like that could be daunting as someone who has gone through that and wanting to start a show about that. Like, is there room for me? Like, imposter syndrome. But like, when people ask me, same thing in the business that I'm in, like a wedding videography, like how many are there? Thousands. But I'm like, but is there you? Like, no one is doing what no one is.
Yes.
Like, you are going to bring something to the table that is so different, like your personality, your style, your story, like your story matters, and your advice that you could give, that you've experienced things that other people have not.
Yes.
And like, there's an end destination. And I think that's one thing too that I've learned, is you look at some people who you might like look up to and think like, what are the steps that they took to get there? But there's no roadmap. Like, everyone has a different way of getting to whatever their destination is. And so some people will be like, oh, like you're this influencer now. Like, how'd you get there? I was like, I don't know. Like, I really don't. It was random. But like, for someone else, they could have been doing it for 3 years, maybe starting off on YouTube, or, like there's no set roadmap for everyone. It's all going to be unique to you, but like, there's always a space for you and your story.
Yeah. I have on my whiteboard, it says, they are not you.
Yes. Yes. I love that.
I'm constantly, I mean, especially I think right now, mental health is a big topic with the pandemic. And, every time I search for a guest that I want to pitch, there's always the little headset icon emoji or a mic emoji in their bio that says, listen to my podcast. I'm like, oh, I'm just going to be another one,
Another. Yep.
Yep. But they're not me. So
exactly.
And
even if you think like, oh, I'm just another one, like, who cares?
Yeah.
Even if you're listening to, like, sometimes too, like John and I, when we post a video on TikTok, and to us, like, doing bad or doing well might be something completely different to someone with like a different following. But I think like, even if 100 people, we have like 400,000 followers. Even if there is a video that does bad of ours and only 5,000, it gets 5,000 views, which is on the low end. I like try to look at everything very optimistic, and I'm like, well, that's 5,000 people. Do I would never sing in front of 5,000 people. Like that's
Yes.
still a ton,
Yes.
Like you have to
Yes.
look at it and think like even if one person like is listening to you, you're still influencing that person
Yes.
no
O-
matter what scale.
Over the course of this last, I guess, year since all of this blew up, is there anything that surprised you?
Um I guess like I just never I
The whole
if
thing.
someone told me, yeah, just really the whole thing, because like if someone was like in a year you will have a sponsorship with Poopery or like
Yeah.
Spotify, I would be like shut up,
Yeah.
like it's just surreal. It feels surreal, but at the
Mhm.
same time like as much as things have changed, nothing has changed.
Yes.
So like, we still have our normal jobs. We're still the same people, have the same struggles like as everyone else does. And so I think what has changed for me most is the perspective that I have had on influencers. Like I feel like I put so much value in the amount of followers when I would see other people and be like,
Mm.
wow, they have 30,000 followers. That's so many. They have 100,000 followers. That's a bajillion.
Mhm.
And now that we have that, I'm just like, it means nothing.
Yeah.
Like, yes, it's cool. Like, but
Yeah.
are you happy? Like, in the
Mhm.
scheme of life, like,
Mhm.
does that matter? Like, what really matters in life to you?
Mhm.
You?
Yeah, and I think it's reminding me of earlier in the conversation about going viral. It's like if you're going viral, you've got this few minutes of glory, and I'm sure it feels good. It's like getting an Oscar. It's like I've got the prize for all this work I've put in. But if at the end of the day, the content that you're producing and what you're actually doing on the back end, behind the scenes, if you're not happy, then,
Hmm.
you know, going viral, it's like, who cares?
Right, right. Well, and I think that's so important, though. One thing too that helps John and I, at least, like in our relationship and in our business and just doing the content creation, is having a why and
Mm, mm-hmm.
focusing on the why and why are we doing this. And at the end of the day, if it's not fulfilling our why as to what we're doing and why we're doing it, then it doesn't then we're doing something wrong. Like
Yes.
we want to make sure that we're enjoying the process. We're doing it to make people laugh, to bring joy to their days, to create content, even like in our business, to create long lasting content for these couples to relive and cherish these memories
Mm-hmm.
back, so they could look back at these weddings years and years down the road. But it's like you have to have a purpose,
Yes.
and your ultimate why, and as to why you're doing everything.
Well, so that kind of brings me to my next wonders about you, Alex, is what's next for you and John? What is the next on the big plan, I guess?
So it's funny because like we write out our 5-year plan, but like it changes because we actually never know like what's going to happen in life, but that's
Mm-hmm.
fine. You have to be flexible. And that's one thing too. It's like life is so short, but you also have to be flexible or fluid, I would say,
Yeah.
because flexible things can still break. But um, we are the rest of the year filming weddings because of all of our postponements from 2020 into
Mm-hmm.
2021. We
Mm-hmm.
are completely booked. So we're going to be traveling up and down the East Coast, capturing the love stories of so many people. But we love that. It's so fun. And now that weddings are going back to normal, it's great to just see people getting together and like gathering and partying. Like these weddings have been insane because people are just so excited to
So
party.
fired up.
So yeah, it's been fun. But given the busy year, we're going to keep the podcast going, even if we have to shorten up our episodes. But we've really enjoyed being in the TikTok world and creating videos. Like that has become so much fun for us. Like I don't think we realized how much we were going to love it. And like the difference of creativity that it is
Mm-hmm.
opposed to doing like wedding films and commercials and music videos are very precise and clean and
Mm-hmm.
not as raw, I guess. And
Mm-hmm.
TikToks are just like fun and funny and raw. Like they're shot on my iPhone as opposed to the $5,000 cameras that we have. And I'm like, how is this doing better or
Yeah.
performing better on the internet than like what my actual craft and talent
Yes.
that I've spent years perfecting. So I'm like, it doesn't bother me. I'm fine. But meanwhile, I'm like, what the heck?
Yeah.
But it's fine. So yeah. So I mean, but it's fun. It's two different worlds. The very cinematic, edited world, and then like the fun, raw like version of us, which we love so much. So we're gonna see how balancing both goes. But I think like we would love to do more of do more TikToks if we could. Like if we could do TikToks all day long, we would. But
Well, I mean, your work
yeah.
is wonderful. I mean, I'm speaking now about your real whatever. I don't want to say real, but your actual
Yeah,
business.
my actual job.
Yes,
Yeah.
I mean, and I think I just want to say too, you had at one point had said that your success on TikTok was random, but I have to say you can tell that your videos have a different edge to them, and they're much more enjoyable to watch because I just look at it and go, people see this and think, oh, what a funny video. A lot of times I look at it and go, oh, the way they shot that makes it. You know, when you sometimes pan back and forth between your two faces, and just the thought to even pan to John's face, even with no dialogue, but just to like see his expression. You don't get that in a lot of videos, and that is your craft. That is your expertise coming through there. So it's not quite random. You have a ton of skill.
I guess I just think it is like, because I don't think of it. That's just like how my brain has been trained for so long. It's like, oh, well, duh. Why wouldn't you? Like, you need to show the reaction, or you need to do the B-roll. But like, yeah, I guess it's
it's not second nature
it's
to
the curse
most
of
people.
Knowledge.
Yes.
Is that what it's called? Like,
I don't
know too much that like you think everyone else knows it. The
Oh,
curse
yes.
of knowledge. But
yes.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you, right a little bit before you and I got on this call, I could feel my anxiety sort of kicking up, right? And I was put on a song, I'm dancing around my office, and I think to myself, this would be such a funny TikTok or a cute reel, because I'm trying to think of how I'm going to promote this show on different outlets. And I'm like, oh, start today. Give yourself 20 minutes. If you can put a TikTok together in 20 minutes of you dancing around, showing your true self, great.
Yes.
No. It did not go well. It did not go well. Like, what are the kids saying now? I was chuggy as crap. Like, it was horrible.
New word.
It was horrible. And I immediately thought of you, and I'm going, yeah, no. So everything they're doing, there's so much skill there that you don't even realize fully until you try to do it yourself.
But you learn as you go. I tell everyone, I'm like, just start. Again, just start, and you'll learn and you'll figure it out as you go. Like, I think that there's space for everyone on TikTok, because, you know, there's something that you do that's going to be different from what we do. Or like, you know, there's just so many different accounts on there, like the millennial accounts that, like, you know, or the workforce accounts. Like, there's just so many, there's so much gold on there. I just love TikTok. It's hilarious.
I know. It really is something special. I think it was something that we all needed this year too.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
All right. Well, is there anything, Alex, that you would have asked yourself that I didn't?
I feel like you covered it all. I'm like drawing a blank. I feel like we chatted about, like, we covered everything.
I know. Well, the only thing I guess that I expected to, just me being me. So my thing is Sass, and that is a nickname that I've gotten because I tend to be, you know, the blunt friend, the one that just doesn't hold anything back. And I think you being my first recording, I was a little nervous, and I've got these notes and I'm all over the place. But one thing I do really want to talk about, I guess, just quickly, we don't have to dive too deep into it, but one thing that I've really worked on this year, especially since we've brought up the pandemic and everything, is coping. And, you know, when things get tough, when things are hard, you know, I really, like I said, I appreciate your outlook. What are some things that you've done this past year to cope, or just in your experience of life?
One thing that John and I do together is we love to work out. Like, we could sit in our office and work for hours and hours.
Yes.
And you just have so much stress that builds up like in your body, and just like sitting in a position and just your eyes on a screen. And so for
Mhm.
me, like fitness has just been a saving grace throughout. Like I've always been a very active kid. Like I danced throughout my entire life growing up, danced in college, but I don't know. I just think eating right, hydrating your body, and just being kind to yourself. And even if like you can't make it to the gym, or like the gym isn't your thing, go on a walk. I
Yeah.
think walking, breathing in fresh air, like walking my dog is one of my favorite things to do. I just listen to a podcast and I go on a 20-minute walk, and that's like exercise for him, exercise for me, but like
Yeah.
it is just my saving grace, I think, is moving my body.
I'm so glad you said that, because I'm like, how could I have talked to Alex for an hour and not brought up Kobe?
Yeah.
Kobe is
I
is your
know.
baby.
I know, my son. Oh my gosh. So we haven't talked about this, but like I'll tell you. He is in New York right now. We're currently in Richmond. We'll be in New York in like a week, but we were there a month ago for a wedding. And then my family member was supposed to come down and bring him because he was visiting. And Kobe attacked a cat. And so
No.
he is on house arrest.
Oh
And
my
yeah,
goodness.
so that was the cat is okay, but it was an expensive endeavor that John and I had to
Oh my
cough up.
God.
But because it was so traumatic, my cousin ended up not coming down. And so I was like, you know what? Just leave him in New York with my parents, where they have 2 other dogs there that he could
Okay.
hang out with. But
Okay, so wait,
oh
you
yeah.
haven't seen him in like a month now.
No, I haven't seen him in literally like 3 weeks
Oh
or 4
my
weeks at this point.
goodness.
I miss him so much.
Talk
It's
about
so
mental
beautiful.
health. You don't even have your
And the fact,
dog.
like, he's an attempted murderer, and I don't even get to see him after he's now he has a bounty on his head. Like,
He needs his
my
mother.
right? I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna like beat him up when I see him or hug him. Like, I mean, I FaceTime him because my mom has him, but I'm just like, oh my God. And we were gonna talk about it on the podcast, but I think it was just like a little too fresh. And I was like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't want anyone to think that Kobe's a cat murderer or the cat is okay.
Aw.
Like, still. I was
No,
like, I don't
no,
want
no,
to think he's a
no.
bad boy, because he's a good boy. He just, it's his instincts, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, we've just spent this whole show talking about all the goods and the bads, and dogs have them too.
Exactly. I guess he was just having a bad day.
Oh, poor Kobe. Poor you.
My child. Oh, that was stressful. Yeah, I was stressed,
I
especially
can't
being
imagine.
afar and hearing about all the ruckus that my child is putting other people through. I'm like, fabulous. Just send me the bill. Send me the bill.
Oh my God. Well, it's preparing you for what may or may not come down the road for you and John.
Right? I know. I'm like, if this is what it's like being a dog mom, like, what is it like being a human mom, and the
I know.
stress of that?
I know. It's next level, girl. I'm telling you. I could never even have imagined.
I give so much credit to any mom out there, just superwoman doing anything. I'm just like, I don't know how you have the time to brush your hair, because I hardly have the time and I don't have children.
Well, you have one.
Yeah.
And
No,
really, you probably have like 1.5, because I think all men count as like a half kid.
That's a good point. You have a good point there. Very true.
I'm probably going to regret saying that, but I think it's true.
Yes.
All right, Alex, well, tell my listeners where they can find you online and all the places.
Perfect. Well, you could find my Instagram. It's Alexandra Madison with 2 N's at the end. And then on TikTok, same thing. It's just Alexandra Madison _. But you could listen to my husband and I at Give It To Me Straight podcast. And that's where
Excellent.
we give you all of the advice.
I highly
unfiltered.
recommend. It's very
Thank you.
it does exactly what you wanted to do. It sounds like you're just at a table with friends talking and listening, except we're just listening.
I'm glad. That's exactly what we wanted. And I'm so excited for you, and congratulations on your podcast. I cannot wait to tune in.
Thank you. You're so sweet. Thank you so much. So, have you found Alex on TikTok yet? Do it. You won't regret it. What I love about Alex is that she keeps it completely real. Yes, she is funny and charismatic, but did it come through for you the way it did for me just how smart she is? She jumped onto a social media platform during a pandemic and turned it into a business.
leveraging her skills as a videographer and tapping into the silly yet completely factual struggles of everyday life with a partner. When I think of Alex, I think no fear. In fact, I might start to wonder, what would Alex do when faced with a business or content-related decision? I can't for a second pretend to truly be able to access her creativity and skill, but I can channel her take the bull by the horns energy and just do it, whatever it is. And how about connecting business and her personal relationships? It's so true, but often gets forgotten that what most people want is to be heard, to be validated, and to be respected. So often we do this out of obligation in business, out of respect, and because we know it's the right thing to do for the reputation and success of our business or company. But why do we not apply the same mentality to our relationships, our marriages, etc.? I hope we can start to do that more often. I also like this mentality maybe because being in your feelings or exploring these self-helpy notions turns you off. So instead, think of your personal relationships a little bit like a business relationship that needs to be nurtured and requires respectful communication. I think it could work. And lastly, but certainly not least, I want to take this moment to once again thank Alex for being my very first recording. I can hear the nerves in my voice as I speak with her. But she helped me feel so comfortable, and I will always remember her for that. And I'd also like to thank her, and John, of course, for taking a chance and creating their TikTok content. I found their account during a particularly low point during the COVID-19 pandemic quarantine, and one of the things I could always look forward to brighten my day was one of their videos. I think I've definitely seen them all at this point, and some of them more than once. So thank you again, Alex. Let us know what you thought of this episode by leaving a comment on Instagram or Facebook, and by leaving a review of this episode on iTunes or wherever you're listening to this right now. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll catch you next time. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Sass Says is a production of Luann Nigara Inc. This podcast is meant to be educational and not meant to replace professional therapy or professional medical attention. To learn more about today's show and what's new in my world, head over to sasssays.com. Thanks so much. Talk later.